Hi guys, Grant J here, and yeah, it's been a while since our last video, but here we are with Opus 3 just come out, and now I'd just like to catch up and do one of our set reviews. So here we are, so I hope you guys enjoy. Today we'll be doing our set review for Opus 3 for the fire cards, so let's get started. So the first card on the list is Red Mage. So Red Mage is a 2-cost fire backup. When Red Mage enters the field, choose one forward an opponent controls. If you control 4 or more card named Red Mage, deal it 8,000 damage. So this card's looks like a really fun card in theory. So obviously you'd be playing in a deck where you have a lot of other red mages, so you can have this ability to do 8,000 damage. Do note that as long as you control 4 or more red mages, so that's 3 other red mages plus this red mage, you can do 8,000 damage. So at this stage, there's not enough red mages to do it in mono fire. So in this case, I don't think this card is really going to see any play. It does seem like a really fun, cool mechanic. But it's at the stage just a bit more of a gimmick. If Fire had more good fire mages, if Fire had more good red mages, then this would potentially be more relevant. But at this stage, I just don't think it will see any play. So the next card on the list is Ifrit. It is a 4-cost summon that has EX burst. Choose one forward, deal it 7,000 damage. If you control a Type 0 cadet, deal it 8,000 instead. This card doesn't seem very good to me. The big issue is it costs 4, so its base effect, if you don't have any Type 0 cadet forwards, is doing the same amount of damage that you would if you were to play Brynhilda. So a 7-cost summon that's been very standard in Fire for a long time. Going up from 7k to 8k is a very relevant number, as a lot of 4-cost forwards are around that 8k mark. So that's a very good number to hit, but I don't think the payoff for playing Ace Cadets and the cost is worth it. So if it were a 4-cost summon and the payoff for having an Ace Cadet was 9,000 damage or 10,000 damage, then I think it might warrant it. But at going from 7 to 8 and paying 1 extra for that potential to do 1 extra, I don't really think it's relevant even in a Type 0 Cadet deck. Next card is Ace. So Ace is a 3-cost fire forward, 7,000 power, so it's on curve right where you want it to be. It has a field effect. Job class 0 cadet forwards you control other than Ace get plus 1,000 power. And he's also got an S ability for S and Fire. Choose one forward, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each job class 0 cadet that you reveal this way, deal it 4,000 damage. Then place the revealed cards at the bottom of your deck. So this card seems like quite a strong card to me. So first of all, the ability to give all your other Type 0 cadets plus 1,000 as just a static bonus, that's very relevant, especially in a Type 0 Ace Cadet deck. So definitely for that effect alone, it's also pretty good. Its body's like on par with where it should be, and it's got a really strong S ability. So from my experience, this card is usually doing 8 to 12,000, which are very strong numbers to be hitting to opposing forward. So 8,000 or 12,000, that's going to kill most things. 12,000, you're definitely going to kill anything. And then occasionally you get 16,000, which is irrelevant. On the very rare occasion, you get 4,000 with 0 damage, but that doesn't happen very, very often in the Type 0 Cadet deck, from my experience. So I think this card is very strong. The fact that its S ability doesn't dull as well means that you can just be pitching extra aces, and Ace is one of those cards that you have 2 copies of. So you have both this copy and the light copy, so it's possible for you to do cut cards much more regularly than other S abilities. So this card's very strong. Definitely if you're playing an Ace Cadet deck that includes Fire, this is definitely an instant free off. Next card is Garland. So Garland is a 4-cost forward at 8,000 power, so where you'd like to be. During your turn, if Garland would receive damage, reduce that damage by 2,000. Also, it's got an interesting special ability where you pay X CP as well as S and dull it. Choose one forward, deal it 6,000 damage and 1,000 more for each CP that you paid extra on top. So basically, it's a similar effect to Fireball in Magic, where the more CP you pay or the more resources you pay into it, the more damage it deals. I don't think it scales in a particularly great way, but it means that you've always got the option to turn his S ability damage from a 6k nuke to an 8k to a 9k to a 10k. So that's very relevant. This Garland actually has a pretty strong effect in that, like, it's a very good attacker in that when you're attacking, it receives 2,000 less damage when it's attacking. So in that regard, I think this card is quite strong. But then again, the 4-cost 8,000 bracket is actually really highly contested, And Fire has a particularly good 4-cost forward already in the form of Tifa that has a very strong S ability as well, and has Zangan support and has haste, haste while you have Zangan. So, I think it's going to be really hard to take Tifa up from the pedestal in Fire decks that she's already at. And I don't think that this card is really going to knock her off that pedestal. That being said, though, if potentially you were running this Garland in like a Fire Water deck and you can use the ability of Mimu, for example, then this might potentially see some play. Fire's got quite a couple of cards that might that benefit from Mimu. Another card is Rosso, for example. So while I don't think that this is on purely a power perspective stronger than Tifa, I think he might be able to see play in more nichier sort of decks. Next card is the Tifa Mannequin. So Imaginary Brawler. It's free cost, 7,000 power, so it's standard. When it attacks, choose the highest cost forward an opponent controls. It cannot block this turn. So it's a very common theme in Fire decks to be able to choose your opponent's forwards and to make them unblockable. At free cost, it's coming in quite cheap, so all you need to do is dial a backup and discard a card, and this is going to be one of those forwards that comes out really early. And it's really difficult for your opponent to block early game because your opponent's trying to catch up and put forwards down to try to block this forward, unless they want to take damage. And in that regard, Tifa acts very much like Snow, in that she'll attack through and prevents one of your opponent's guys from blocking. So for an aggressive Fire deck, I think that this card will definitely see play. The fact that you can play multiple copies on the field is quite strong, means that they're never really going to be dead cards in your hand, and just the ability to make a forward unblockable is just going to let you slip a lot of attackers through. So this card seems quite strong. And if there's a Fire deck that isn't going to be like the Zac Cloud deck or some ping deck, then I think this card will definitely see play. Next card is King. So King is the next Class 0 cadet that we see. So King is a 5-cost forward at 9,000 power. For each drop 0 cadet that you control other than King gets plus 1,000 power. So it's one of those forwards that gets more power than more other type 0s that you have on the field. And his S ability is Point Blank Shot. So for an S, Fire, and Dull, choose one forward, deal a damage equal to King's power. And considering that King is getting power from all your other forwards, he's probably going to be the biggest guy on the field. And so he should realistically be able to shoot pretty much any forward for lethal using his power. Definitely, it seems a little bit higher costed, in that I don't think that you're getting enough value out of a 5-cost from King. But that being said, Type 0 also has a way to get around it. So the starter deck Ace that allows you to play a Type 0 card from your hand. This is exactly the sort of card that you want to pair that up with. You want to pay 6, put your starter Ace into play, and get a free Type 0 cadet such as King. A big guy, you get a 7,000 power forward, and you get like a 10,000 power forward. And King is going to be able to point blank shot if you have extra copies of him. This card by itself not strong enough, but with the support in Type 0 cadets, he'll see play easily. Next card is a card that's a little bit controversial in regards to, it's called Bard. So Bard is a 2-cost backup. 2-cost backup, it's a standard unit. For its ability, it's Fire, Fire, Dull. Put Bard into the break zone. All forwards you control and gain plus 2,000 power until the end of turn. Only use this ability during your turn. So this card is obviously this is the sort of card that you put in where you have 2 or 3 Fire forwards and you want to rush them all in, use this ability, give them all plus 2,000 power, and they're either going to trade up very well into your opponent's forwards or they're just going to be able to leak through. In that regard, Bard is definitely a very strong ability. It's a standard unit, so you can put as many copies of him onto the field if you want. So you can run a large amount of these backups. You can run 3 copies, and you will never really be clogged up with these guys. Personally, I prefer Selfie instead. I like having the ability to just give specifically one attacking forward plus 2,000 power, and to be able to use that effect again and again every turn, and not to set myself back a backup. Whereas Bard, in this case, you pay the same amount. You're giving plus 2,000 to all your forwards, but you're also consuming it at the same time. Although I do suppose you do have a bonus in that you can use this as a defensive buff during your turn if your opponent is using a ability to deal damage to your forwards. That's relevant. So this card is fine. So it's up to your personal preference whether you run this or say Selfie. So yeah, it's fine. I would prefer Selfie, but I definitely do not fault anyone that plays this card instead. Next card is Cloud. So Cloud is a free cost forward at 7,000 power. Its ability is if you control a category 7 forward other than Cloud, Cloud gets Brave. And Dull, choose an attacking forward against plus 2,000 power until the end of turn. So obviously it can if there's no support for it, he can be played as a forward that's on curve, and he can dull himself to give other attacking forwards plus 2,000 power as a support ability. In addition to that, if you do have a type 7 forward other than Cloud, then he can use his ability while he's attacking to give himself plus 2,000 power to bump him up to 9,000. In that regard, I don't think that this card will. This card is definitely not really the centerpiece for any sort of like a Cloud of type 7 deck or category 7 deck, I suppose. Mainly because he's always going to be competing with the best Cloud in the game, which is 4 cost Light Cloud, and there is quite good support for 4 cost Light Cloud right now in a card that we'll be talking about a little bit later. In that regard, I don't. Maybe this card will see play, and he might potentially be replacing the 2 cost Cloud as another card to discard for Light Cloud. So this card may see play, but I don't think that he's going to push the other Light Cloud out, and that's really the centerpiece of any sort of like Cloud-based deck. So yeah, fun card. I definitely feel that it's going to be fun in any sort of sealed or draft event environment. But yeah, I don't think he'll see competitive play because there's simply a better Cloud. He might sneak in as an S card. Next card is Carter. So Carter is a 2-cost backup that's an ace as a class 0 cadet. Its ability is you can pay 1 wind and dull it to choose 1 forward and deal 1,000 damage, or pay on lightning and dull it to choose 1 damage forward and deal it 2,000 damage. So it's a card that splashes into the 2 other colors that ace cadets are in this game in the TCG. So wind, lightning, and fire are the 3 colors that ace cadets are in. So obviously you have to be playing this card in some sort of duo or triple colored ace cadet deck. It's a class 0 cadet, and there are definitely plenty of abilities such as Siege that count how many ace cadets you have in total, as opposed to just ace cadet forwards. So this is just like another bonus to that. Its effect, I don't think you use particularly too often, although occasionally it does help. Its most relevant effect is that you can deal damage to your opponent's guys so that your queen can use first strike to win combat very easily. And yeah, so I think in most cases you'll be using the wind part of it much more often than the lightning part of it. But that being said, if you do attack your opponent and they have some sort of combat trick and then they're able to out edge your forward, you can always use the lightning and dull to be able to finish your opponent's forward off. So this card will see play, obviously any sort of type 0 cadet that has fire in it. Next card is Gecko. So Gecko is one of the ninjas from this set. So it's a 5-cost 7,000 power forward, so it's a little bit below the curve, but it makes up for it by when Gecko enters the field, you may play a job ninja or a card name ninja of cost 4 or less from your hand onto the field. So yeah, there's quite a couple of ninjas in the game so far. So obviously this guy's a ninja. There's a water ninja later in the set, Izuyoi, and obviously the main ninja Edge. He's a 4-cost 8,000 power forward. So obviously it's got synergy with that. He's got a additional ability where you can pay a fire and 1 CP. For all ninjas and card names ninjas you control, get plus 1,000 power until the end of turn. So that's quite a good buff. That's like a blanket buff, give all you guys plus 1,000 power. And if you have Edge, they already got plus 1,000 power at first strike. So yeah, it just seems to synergize very well in a sort of like fire or wind sort of ninja style deck. Even though he costs 5, the fact that you get to play a 4-cost ninja from your hand is like very relevant. So you effectively, in a best case scenario, you'd be paying 5 for this card, and you're getting an Edge for free, or you're paying 5 for this card, and you're getting Izuyoi, and then Izuyoi brings out another guy. So, yeah, definitely if you're playing any sort of ninja deck, this guy will probably fit in there. And Fire's already got 1 ninja in the game, so potentially we could be starting to see some like cool ninja decks like in the game soon. Don't think it's going to be like, I don't think it's going to push ninjas too competitive, but I definitely feel that ninjas could be this fun, casual, tier 1.5, tier 2 type deck, just for something fun to mix things up a little bit. And yeah. Next card is Gladiator. So Gladiator is a 2-cost forward that has 3,000 power, so it's below the curve. But for each backup your opponent controls, Gladiator gets plus 1,000 power. So obviously, the later the game goes and the more backups your opponent controls, this guy gets stronger and stronger. Water's got a similar card, but it counts your backups. I'm not sure if I like this card a lot, just because I don't like situations where I'm giving my opponent the choice to determine how strong my guys are. So obviously, there are backups that can destroy themselves to create an effect. So this can potentially push that down in certain situations where you are attacking or blocking with Gladiator. So yeah, and I don't know, so obviously the best scenario for this guy is if you're playing an aggressive type situation and your opponent's trying to play a more controlled defensive position and try to build up the backups. So they're naturally sort of building up the strength of your Gladiator. But even if your opponent has, say, 3 or 4 backups, that's only like 6 or 7,000 power. So it's efficient, but you have to wait quite late into the game in order to get him to sort of like a bonus level. And for an aggressive deck, I don't think that that's quite enough. That being said, though, there are some cards, for example, Phoenix a little bit later on, that does have bonuses to 2-cost forward. So potentially we might see something with it. But I'm skeptical at this stage. So, getting to the first legend of the set, Zac. So Zac is a 5-cost, 8,000 power forward, so it's definitely below the curve, but he's got a really strong effect. So, when Zac comes in the field, all forwards you control get plus 2,000 power until the end of the turn. Not super amazing, but when Zac is put from the field into the break zone, you may search for a card named Cloud of 4 or less and add it to your hand, or put it into the field dull. So obviously this card's effect is specifically to support the Light Cloud and to give him much more support. And if any of you guys played in Opus 1, Light Cloud was just one of those cards that you did not want to see because your opponent is just going to pressure the hell out of you. He's got Brave, he's got 8,000 power, and he's got 2 really strong S abilities. And this card basically means that you can play this. If he blocks something, if he dies, then you just get a free Cloud. Just free Cloud straight on the field. And usually if he's dying, he's probably dying blocking your opponent's attack, which means it goes straight into your turn. Pretty much goes straight into your turn, and your Cloud's ready to go. So in this regard, on paper he's very strong. On paper he seems very strong, but I do believe that because of this card and a couple other cards that have really strong enter break zone abilities, I think we might start seeing more Yuna H and another card in Lightning Enwo that might be countering some of these enter break zone abilities. Not to mention, you have cards like Ultima and you have cards like Shantoto that's going to be removing a lot of forward. So I don't think the field is ideal for this Zac to flourish, but on paper he's very strong. Definitely, if you do build a cloud-centric deck with this Zac, I feel that you're gonna have fun. But there's just gonna be certain matchups where you just feel like you're so behind because this card's gonna be dead. Yep. Next card is Amarant. Amarant is one of the cards that we saw in the starter deck. It's a 5-cost forward at 9,000 power. Its ability is to dull. Put one forward into a break zone. Choose one forward. Deal it damage equal to the power of the forward you put into the break zone. So yeah. So it's not an amazing ability by itself. It's not an amazing ability by itself. Obviously, its greatest value is that it allows you to shoot your useless guys or your big guys that have been targeted by your opponent's abilities, and to take out one of your opponent's forwards out at the same time. That being said, though, I don't know if I really want my 5-cost forward to be like my 5-cost 9,000 power forward to be just sitting there and not attacking and just like be waiting on whether to use that ability or not. That being said, though, the reason why he was particularly relevant in the class 9 deck is because a lot of the class 9 cards, for example, Zidane and Steiner, are cards that give you card advantage. They will bring cards into the field or bring cards into your hand, and it means that you have a constant supply of guys. So in a situation where you have like all these guys that you can just sort of spam in and zerg in, having Amarant to shoot them into your opponent's forwards is actually relevant enough because it clears your field, allows you to play those forwards again and sort of continue on the cycle. That being said, though, I don't really want a forward that's its entire ability requires it to be active. Because if I'm playing a 5-cost forward at 9,000 power, I want him to be attacking my opponent and dealing damage and locking the game down. And unless you're specifically building a deck like Water where you're running fairies to reactivate them so you can use their abilities, or Wind where you can reactivate them, I don't think that this card is sort of good enough to justify not attacking with a big guy. So yeah, next card is Sync. So Sync is a 2-cost forward, 5,000 power, so it's a little bit below the curve. For Fire and Dull, choose one forward. That forward must block this turn if possible. So yeah, and it's got an S ability, Full Swing. So until the end of the turn, Sync gets plus 5,000 power and Brave. You can only use this ability during your turn. So obviously, its S ability is supposed to synergize with her first ability to force opponents forward to block. To clarify though, when your opponent's forward that must block, it must block every attack that it's able to, unless it it must block every attack during that turn if it is able to, unless there's another forward that has the same condition as well. So in this regard, Sync is a forward that you only have one version of, so you can only run maximum 3. So it's very unlikely for you to pull off the Full Swing Brave attack, then force your opponent's block sort of combo effect. That being said though, it is a Type 0 cadet. Not an amazing one, but it does have some very good synergies with another particular Fire Ace cadet, Mackinaw, in that Mackinaw has a really strong ability, and when he defeats an opponent's forward in combat, then he's able to deal splash damage to other forwards. And this card is a good combination with that to force your opponents to block your Mackinaw, do some splash damage, and be able to do a lot of damage across the board. So yeah, so this card will see play in the Ace Cadet deck. I'm not sure if it will see more than say 2 copies. If it's a fire-based one, then it might see more. But I'm not a huge fan of this card. I think it's fine. But yeah, next card is Black Waltz 2. So Black Waltz 2 is a 3-cost backup that was in the starter deck. It's EX Burst. When Black Waltz 2 enters the field, choose one forward an opponent controls. Deal it 3,000 damage plus 1,000 damage more for each card in your opponent's hand. So at the very least, it's dealing an opposing forward 3,000 damage, and it can be anywhere between, and it will deal anywhere between say 4 to say 7 or 8,000. So if you are targeting one of your opponent's forwards, your opponent does have the chance to respond by discarding cards to play abilities or to cast summons to reduce that effect. So in that regard, I don't super like Black Waltz 2 in the sense that your opponent can respond to reduce the damage. However, that being said, it is a strong EX burst in that a lot of stronger and better players tend to declare their attacks first before playing any cards, and then play their cards after in the main phase. It's just kind of a standard card playing mentality. And this kind of punishes those players for doing that. So your opponent draws 2 cards, so that's effectively an extra 2,000 damage that Black Waltz is going to do, when it EX bursts. So there have been times where someone attacks, you flip over this Black Waltz as an EX burst, and your opponent just they feel terrible because they could have, they were planning later on in that turn to say discard 2 cards and play a big guy, and Black Waltz subsequently wouldn't have done enough damage to kill their forward. But the fact that they declared their attacks first meant that Black Waltz was able to kill their guy. So it kind of punished them for playing stuff after attacking. I don't know if this card's impact will be sort of heavy enough to sort of change player mentalities to start forcing them to play stuff before combat. But I'm still very up in the air about this card. On paper, I don't like it enough, but there is potential for it, I feel. Just because its EX burst is so punishing against better players. For that standard sort of play after combat mentality. Next card is Pollum. So Pollum is a 4-cost forward, 7,000 power, below the curve. But when a forward is dealt damage, that damage is increased by 1,000. So it's got the Fire Summoner ability in that it's amplifying all damage to all forwards by 1,000. And it has an S ability, which is S, pay free fire. Choose up to 3 forwards and opponent controls. Deal them 6, 4, deal them 6, 4, and 2,000 damage. So in this case, if Pollum is still on the field as it's resolving, it means that you're actually dealing 7, 5, and 3,000 damage. However, you can't choose the same forward multiple times, so you can't just say, oh, this one particular forward, shoot it for 7, shoot it for 5, and then shoot it for 3. You know, so they have to be 3 distinct targets. That being said, I don't think it'll be too often that you'll be wiping more than, say, 2 guys with it. Even like getting 2 guys with it, I'm still pretty skeptical. Yeah, because like, there's not too many situations where your opponent has, like, say, a 5,000 power forward on the field. And I don't like Palam's ability in that he's amplifying damage all the time, because it's obviously its ability that can sort of work against you as well. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this card. I don't know where to sort of play it. And like Fire has got plenty of ways to deal damage otherwise. Even in a sort of like Palam or Porom deck, I'm like, obviously that's probably the only last place you can sort of go with this card. Even then I'm not really sure where to sort of like go with it. So I am not sure about this card. Like, there's probably some guy that's going to be making some like fun sort of gimmick deck with this card. And yeah, all the best to you, man. But like, competitively, I don't think that this card is really going to see any play. Next card is Vivi. So Vivi the Legend is a 3-cost forward that has 4,000 power, so significantly below the curve. When it comes into play, choose on a forward that an opponent controls, deal it 4,000 damage, and 1,000 more for each card in your opponent's hand. So it's a very similar effect to Black Waltz before, but like at minimum will deal 4,000, and it can potentially do anywhere from like say 5 to 9,000 damage if your opponent has no responses. That being said, I do feel that any sort of situation where I feel it's very unlikely you'll be able to do 9,000 damage, because if you're blowing up one of your opponent's really, really big guys, and they have no responses, I think that's pretty weird. So like the problem with this card is that I don't like being in a situation where you're relying on your opponent to not wreck your shit, you know? So there'll be times where like you'll aim for like, well, you need to hit 7, and then your opponent just discards card, plays something, or does some sort of ability, and now you're only hitting for 5, and you don't kill their guy, you know? So I don't think that first part of its effect is good enough. That being said, though, like I have played cards like Furion and Cloud to deal packet damage when I'm playing Emperor Zan and Mono Fire. So in that regards, it's kind of like a cheaper version, and it does basically the same, if not more, right? So maybe I'm rounding it off too early, but there's like there are other Vivis, and that's kind of the big problem. It's got a very similar problem to Yuna in that there are multiple Vivis. You can only have one Vivi out on the field at a time, and they're all really good to kind of good. All right, and I think that this is a kind of good one, so I don't think it's going to see play because you're going to play the really good ones. Yeah. Not to mention he also has an S ability. So Faraga is S, pay free fire and dull. Deal 7,000 damage to all forwards. I don't think there are going to be many situations where A, you'll pull this off, and B, you want to do it, right? So, in a situation where, let's say, if your opponent's got a board, like maybe 2 or 3 7,000 power units, right? And you are able to keep your Vivi around back to your turn, and pull this off, I think your opponent's just going to blow up your Vivi. Like, realistically, Vivi is like a tiny 4,000, 5,000, like 4,000 power forward. It might get up to 5 or 6,000 with buffs or whatever. But that's still very easy to blow up with just like secondary nukes. So very unlikely you're ever going to get Vivi around to use her dull ability. That being said, it's 7,000 damage to all forwards, so you're blowing up your own Vivi as well. So yeah, it's not a good S ability, and I don't think anyone's really going to use it unless they're in a really terrible situation, and their opponent's in an equally terrible situation in that they can't get rid of this Vivi. So yeah. Next card is the common Vivi. So this Vivi is a 2-cost backup. It's an EX burst. When it enters the field, choosing a forward an opponent controls, deal it 5,000 damage. This is actually a very efficient backup. So if you compare it to, say, lightning backups, which say for Sawyer or I think it's for Sage, Black Magus for Magus. They're both 3-cost backups that come in and deal 5,000 damage. In this case, Vivi is a 2-cost backup that deals 5,000 damage, and it has EX burst. So in that regard, I think this card ticks a lot of boxes. This card is very strong. The only downside to it is that its name is Vivi, in that when you put this Vivi down, you cannot put any other Vivis down. So you cannot spam and play multiple of this like 2-cost backup, and at the same time, it also means you're locked out from using the starter deck Vivi as well. So yeah, this is a strong and really good card, but I think it's not really going to see any play simply because it locks you out from playing the best Vivi, which is the starter deck Vivi, by general consensus. So I think it's a great card. I like it. I've actually got a couple of plans to play with this card a little bit in Sky Pirates, but yeah, unfortunately, it's locked out because it's got the name Vivi. Next card is Faris. Faris is a 5-cost forward with 8,000 power, so it's below the curve. It's got an EX burst that when it enters the field, you may search for one card named Sildra, which is a 6-cost water summon, and add it to your hand. If you control a card named Lena, Faris gets plus 1,000 power. So in this regard, Faris, like on paper, statistically is quite strong. In that, typically when you are able to get a card from a forward that you play, because any card can be discarded for 2 CP, you can at very least discount that card by 2 CP because they're giving you one of the resources that you spent back. So for example, let's say you pay 5 CP to put Faris in play, you get 2 CP back. So in a way, you're kind of playing a free CP forward, right? And at 8,000 power, free CP is already quite strong. Free CP 8,000 power is strong. Not to mention, it also has the ability to get plus 1,000 power as well if you control Lena. So potentially you're getting a 9,000 power forward for effectively a free CP forward. So statistically it's very strong. However, you'd have to be playing Fire Water. So Fire Water, there's been so many interesting like Fire Water combination, like forward combinations, like for example Ash and Bash, Palom and Porum, and so it seems like Square Enix really wants Fire and Water to be like a thing, but like it hasn't really been a thing yet. And I don't think that this is going to be enough to make it a thing yet. That being said, though, potentially it could be something. You know, it's like on paper it's very strong, and so maybe I would like it to be a thing. It'd be cool if it were, but I think that there's too many moving parts in this machine in order to make it work. Next card is Phoenix. It's a 4-cost summon. Choose one forward of cost 2 or less in your break zone. Put it onto the field. Deal 2,000 damage to all forwards and opponent's control. So yeah. It's a summon. It's a summon speed it's a summon speed that lets you put a 2-cost forward onto the field from your break zone. So in that regard, it's pretty cool in that you can sort of instant speed 2-cost forwards back into the game. At the very least, you can do something like put a Vivi back into play, and then like pop Vivi to shoot her for 5,000 damage. You can pull out like say a 2-cost Cloud to like shoot another guy for 2,000 damage and block with him. And it's not color limited as well, so you can pull out 2-cost forwards of any color. So a good example that you might have seen in your sealed or draft events is pulling out the new Scarmiglione. So Scarmiglione, when it comes from the break zone onto the field, you're able to deal damage to a forward. So in this regard, this card is a fun utility card, and I think it's a great card to have in Fire because Fire typically has mostly nukes for summons. So the summons are deal X damage to a forward, and having a summon in Fire that's more than just deal X damage, it's got some like fun utility to it. Really sort of opens up Fire for some like fun, interesting plays. Potentially you could like see stuff like Palom and Porum. So like having a Palom and Porum deck, and then they go do their thing, or if they die, then you can like pull one of the 1-cost guys back onto the field, and then do some interesting effect with that. So in this regard, it's a fun card. I'm very interested to see what the options are. I think that so in this game, that like if your decks are too complicated, it means that your consistency for your deck isn't good enough. And there will be times where you lose because you get different pieces of your combo, but like by themselves, the combo pieces aren't good enough. Dealing 2,000 damage to all your opponent's forwards is a very minuscule amount. It means that your smaller guys can trade up into their bigger guys. So I'm potentially it might see play, but then again, I don't think Fire is a particular compelling color in this set. So Fire didn't get a lot of fun new tools besides from the Ace Cadet stuff. So I'm skeptical that this will really sort of see play. Next card is Gunner. So Gunner is a... Oh, actually, sorry, the translation is wrong. So Cannoneer, I believe, is the correct translation. So it's a 2-cost backup. It's a 2-cost backup. Pay free fire, dull it, put Cannoneer into the break zone, choose 2 forwards, and deal them 5,000 damage. I think this is a really expensive ability, and splashing 2 guys for 5,000 damage is a very awkward ability to have. So, 5,000 damage isn't going to kill most forwards. It's only really going to kill sort of the small to sort of like supportive 2-cost forwards by itself. Either that, or it's going to sort of push your other guys up to deal enough damage to those forwards. So that being said, I don't think that this card is really sort of good enough to... I don't think that this card is really good enough to really sort of have an impact in play. Not to mention that Fire already has a lot of really good 2-cost standard unit backups, in the sense that they've got Black Mage, they've got Summoner, they've got Red Mage, the quintessential Red Mage, and then like all the other ones that are like coming through this set. So Fire has a lot of really good 2-cost backups, and I think it's going to be really hard for this card, Cannoneer, to really sort of contest for that. And I think that's going to happen like more and more throughout the game. Each element's going to get a bunch of really good cards in each slot, and it's going to be increasingly more difficult for new cards to sort of compete for those slots. And I think that this card is not going to stand up against the test of time, because there are simply better options for it. Next card is Mackinaw. So Mackinaw is the sword wielder from Class 0 Cadets. It's a 4-cost forward, 8,000 power. When a forward that Mackinaw dealt damage to this turn is put into break zone, choose 1 forward that your opponent controls, deal it 4,000 damage. And obviously this is an ability that can continually chain on. So if he kills a guy, he deals another guy 4,000 damage. And if that 4,000 damage were to kill that guy, he can then deal another 4,000 damage to someone else. So it can sort of chain along as like sort of a chain explosion type ability. And this synergizes very well with his S ability. So his S ability is fire, 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 dull. So pay free fire and dull him. Choose 1 forward your opponent controls. Deal it 8,000 damage. Then deal 4,000 damage to all other forwards your opponent controls. So, assuming that you can kill your opponent's, like, the first forward, kill the first forward by dealing it 8,000 damage, that would die, and then it would then trigger on the chain effect. So, it deals 8,000 damage to the first guy, 4,000 then gets spread to everyone, but then it also creates a sort of chain explosion effect in that he can then deal another 4,000 damage to another guy. And then if that guy dies, he can then deal another 4,000 to another guy. And don't forget, all these guys have all taken 4,000 damage already. On paper, it seems like a really cool effect, especially like against big boards, which, we might actually see more of in this game. Definitely, like, in a situation like, let's say, against Golbez, if you can pull this off, you'll just blow up every one of those Golbez spawns, like, instantly. And that's going to be a really good feeling. Unfortunately, this is a card that, you've only got 1 copy of Mackinaw at the moment, and so you're not going to be able to pull this off as often as you'd like. But that being said, there are ways to search for it, so you can always use Rem to get extra copies of him back from your graveyard, or you can use Alricia to search for copies of him. So there's a lot of support for him. You're not going to get this off as often as you'd like, but it's a really cool effect. And the fact that he's like sort of big and costed doesn't matter too much, because you've got Ace support to bring him in for really cheap, for effectively free. In this regard, it's only going to see play in the types. Actually, no. It definitely will see play in the fire type 0 cadets. But I don't know outside of cadets. I don't know if you will see much play. Its ability actually isn't too bad in like just standard fire, in that like if you're constantly pinging the other guys, this can also perform like the same sort of chain trigger action. Maybe potentially in the future he might be able to contest for like slots in just mono fire in general, because it seems like a really cool effect, but I'm not sure at this stage. Maybe if the game sort of rotates out the first 2 sets and we got this guy combined with Cannoneer before, and we can just like pull some cool chain abilities. As it stands, kind of not good enough, but it's like a really cool ability in theory. And the next card is Luca. So Luca is a 2-cost backup. It's a 2-cost backup. It gives Pelham you control plus 1,000 power. So that's obviously it's very niche ability. Obviously it's very niche ability, and At least it's the same color as Palom, so you're not having to forcibly splash in a secondary color in order to do this. And he's got a cool ability. So S, fire Dull. Dull one card named Rydia. Choose one forward, deal at 10,000 power. So, in effect, you're paying, you have to Dull, 3 backups, really? And you have to S. So it's kind of like 5 CP. 5 CP to deal with 10,000 damage. Definitely, it is somewhat efficient. But obviously you have to jump through a lot of hoops. You have to get through the Rydia hoop, and you have to have an S copy of this guy, so a secondary copy of this guy, to deal with 10,000 damage, which actually, may be achievable. Rydia, straight up in a lot of decks, Rydia will just C-play, because Rydia is good. Yeah, but I don't know if you really want to be running Palom and this card, because so if you're not running Palom with this card, then its base effect is irrelevant. You're just using it for its S ability. And I don't think it's good enough in that regard. Because if you're playing Palom, you're probably going to be running Porom, right? So what? You're going to be playing Rydia, which is Earth, Palom Fire, and then Porom in Water. I don't think that's really going to happen. So yeah, there's too many little pieces to there's too many pieces to this fun combo. Definitely going to be a fun combo deck. Not going to be competitive, but that's the great thing about this game, is that you can have really fun, building these combo fun casual decks that are often going to pull off really nice plays and just have fun, and we'll be able to stand up to a lot of decks and just do fine, but maybe not consistent enough to be top 8 consistently, you know. So in theory, I like the card. I would like to try it and see if I can jump through these hoops and get that magical 10,000 damage and kill a guy. But yeah, too many hoops to jump through and not enough of a payoff, you know, for setting it up. And the final card is Rubicon Tay. So Rubicon Tay is the new version Archfiend. It is a 6 cost forward at 9,000 power, so it's a little bit overcosted, but its ability is if you control 4 or more fire backups, the cost of playing Rubicon Tay onto the field is reduced by 2. So it becomes effectively a 4 cost forward at 9,000 power, which is quite strong. It's basically, it's stat-wise the same as the previous Rubicon Tay from Opus 2. But when Rubicon Tay is blocked, choose one forward and opponent controls deal 5,000 damage, which, if you've ever played against Emperor Zand, very similar type ability, very strong ability. And its S ability is choose one forward, deal at 4,000 damage. Rubicon Tay gets plus 2,000 power until the end of the turn. So this card, obviously, it has its home in 2 types of decks. One is the Archfiend Golbez deck, and the other one is in a Mono Fire deck. So in a Mono Fire deck, you're much more likely to play this card, just simply because you can play a big 9,000 power forward for 4 CP, which is good, and it's also got abilities where if it is attacking your opponent and your opponent's blocking it, then it's also just shooting 5,000 damage off as well, which is a nice little ping, and then another guy can usually deal enough damage to sort of finish it off. So yeah, I've actually tried this in Fire deck recently, and I've been somewhat impressed actually. So and there's the fact that you can run this Rubicon Tay and the Opus 2 Rubicon Tay is really good because they both have S ability. So depending on where you are in the game and what you're playing against, you can sort of pick and choose which Rubicon Tay you want to play, and the other 3 copies or 2 copies or whatever are always going to be relevant for the S ability. This card also is relevant in that it allows you to play your 2 cost, your Opus 2 Rubicon Tay, and it gives you 5 other copies to use Barrier Shift. And I really love abilities that make your guys unchoosable. So just having 5 chances for you to say, no, your summon does not work on my Rubicon Tay, that is what I love about the game. And yeah, so this card has options of in what sort of decks it'll be seen in. And yeah, so it will see play. I don't think it'll see, it's not going to make a lot of top 8 lists, simply because fire isn't a particularly popular color, compared to, say, lightning or, in this set, probably water or wind. So I think fire is one of the least popular colors or elements at the moment, but I think that this card is definitely strong, and if there were players who were playing more fire, this would be seen in those fire decks, for sure. And that is it. Man, this video has gone on longer than I thought it would. So, this time I was trying to sort of pace myself and go a little bit faster, and, hopefully not drag it on so long. But it seems like we've talked for quite a while, and even then, there are cards I sort of want to dig more deeper into and talk more about it. But I guess we can do a separate video about each of those specific cards. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Yeah, I really would have liked to get this done earlier, but I've been like busy with a lot of stuff. And I was a little bit ill the week before. So yeah, but now I'm feeling pretty good. I finished up at my job, so now I'm just like 24/7 playing cards, making videos. So thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. If you want, subscribe, leave a comment. If you have any opinions on whatever cards, definitely chuck them into the comments below. And I will get the next video out, which would be the ice cards out probably tomorrow. So the day after. I want to try to pump these out one at a time, get these all done before the weekend. And yeah, and so like when you guys just have a good idea of sort of the cards coming, like these new cards in this new set, and sort of just give you some ideas of what's good, what's bad, and what's interesting to play with. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I will catch you guys later. Grand J out.